Welcome everyone. So today I am painting up, or starting to paint up, my Valkyries from Aeronautica. And I want to give you a brief description of what I'm going to do, hopefully going to do, and do a little run through. So it's not going to be a full-blown video, but hopefully you join me on this ride, and hopefully it will turn out the way I would like it to. So, in the box you have 4 Assault Carrier Valkyries. Now I have assembled them up in different ways, purely because I just wanted them to be different. So, in the box you have several different options. So you can have your twin last cannons, single last cannons, missile pods, things like that, and different parts that fit on the front, like infrared sensors, things like that. And normally I don't go for the box art, but how glorious does that look? So on the back of the box, pretty damn pimpin'. There is some alternative paint schemes there. I do like the layout of the back of the box. That looks pretty damn nice. So I have never painted camo with an airbrush before. I've never painted camo on anything bigger than a 25mm model before, I don't think. So I've done a few Marines from Aliens vs Marines for my buddy John from House Chaos channel, but I've never airbrushed anything larger than that. So I would love to one day airbrush maybe a Cadian tank for 40k, something like that. But I thought I'd give it a go. Now I do like this scheme. I'm not quite sure about the yellow stripe on the wing, but the rest of it looks pretty damn cool. So I thought I'd give it a go. So I've got a few nice airbrush greens, and I thought, why not? How hard could it be? So obviously the same colours obviously apply if you're using a classic old hairy brush, but for this I'm going to paint them with an airbrush, just for smoothness and time. And Aeronautica, you can really rip out a force of Aeronautica models in no time. So I notice the bases are quite plain, so I'm going to look at the colour wheel and I'm going to pick a colour that's approximately opposite to these greens and paint up the bases accordingly. Now I have painted up bases before using the radar pattern, so I've had the fluorescent orange radar sweep with my quite bright blue orc Airwa, because it's fairly opposite on the colour spectrum, and with the Aeronautica the Astra Militarum stuff that John's asked me the base before in the past, so he's painted his up grey, classic like battleship kind of styly grey. I decided to make the bases a bit funkier, so I've done it like fluorescent green and a fluorescent red radar sweep as well, but 2 different colours, which was quite nice. But I did like the individual orange sweep that I did previously, so I'm going to do the same kind of technique but with a different colour on the green. So here goes. So I'm going to prime these guys up. Normally I spray my stuff black for the primer and then I zenithal, but in this case I don't think I will. I think I'm just going to airbrush them primer grey, just a flat grey, and then I'm just going to lay down, probably go for the light colour first on the plane, and then airbrush a squiggly green line over it and practice my skills. Then afterwards, when that's all done, I'll start picking out the detail. So I'll do a little bit of stop animation, show you what I'm doing, rather than messing it up live on camera. At least I've got 4 attempts, and then make out that I did it right first time and edit this video. What do you think, guys? Good idea? Let's give it a go. So while the planes are drying, so I've just airbrushed them, just a basic primer. It's a nice grey to keep the paint quite vibrant, quite nice. I'm going to prime these up, all ready for spraying. And like I said, I want to do the opposite end of the spectrum, so probably a nice like candy red works really well with a nice green. So like Christmas, you know, red and green work really well. So to prime these up, you can either blank these off or you can pop the cover. So what do I mean by pop the cover? get a little flat blade screwdriver, possibly a little bit smaller than that, and pop it there, there, and there as there are little tabs. So I'll just wiggly, 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 pop very slightly, so you can see it's just open up a little bit there, open up a little bit there, and final one. If I can get the screwdriver in there. Nope, I can't. There we go. Never works so well on camera, does it? So take the back off, and just remember which way around the dials go. So that's the speed, that's the altitude. So altitude is measured from 1 to 5. Keep that safe to one side. And the speed 0 to 9. So I'll pop those off there. So I'll do that with all of them, prime it up, and then I'll be ready to start masking it up for the radar sweep. Okay, so the next stage, so I primed it, rattle canned it black, and I did zenithal on the top side, just so when I paint it all over, the bottom side is slightly darker. I put 2 thin coats of this stuff down. So khaki would be preferable, but I find it a little bit dark, so I'm trying to make a camo scheme that's slightly punchy, which is weird because camo you don't want to be seen, but I want camo that is quite eye-catching, which makes no sense. If you know what I mean, I want camo that is popping, it's bright, it's vibrant, looks great for tabletop use. It would be no good in real life, but it still looks like a camo scheme. So what I've used is this from Vallejo, which is, if I can get it to focus, Dead Flesh. So it's almost a slightly greeny, lighter khaki colour. So rather than brown, it's more of the greeny tinge. So let's have a look at that. So it's fairly khaki, and I've put 2 nice light coats on with an airbrush just for ease, so it's nice and smooth, so no brush strokes. And then I was thinking something fairly punchy, which is another Vallejo colour through the airbrush, a goblin green. So a goblin green looks something like that, so slightly greener than you think. So the idea is to have a fairly dark green with a fairly light khaki, so they complement each other fairly well. So I'm just going to do a swirly pattern there, and there's no real method in this. Just like that kind of thing, so not too close to each other and nice and random. So how about that? It's not looking too bad, is it? Like that, and then a nice diagonal one maybe, like that. There goes the good old compressor kicking in. Something a bit like that. Now we'll put a wash on it when it dries. I'm thinking Games Workshop's Chthonian Camo shade, just to make it a little bit dirty and get all those rivets really popping and seeing a bit more of a contrast between the light and the dark. So I have my pot of the Chthonian Camo shade. I'm going to put it out of the way so I don't knock it over, because that will happen, especially on camera. What I'm going to do is I am going to hit all the recesses as hard as I can, and I will drag off, because I want my plane to be dirty, I want to drag off the highlighted areas on these lighter sections with my finger. The reason I'm doing that is I would like it to be still kind of grubby, but on the bottom I'm not. So I'm not going to put a super heavy wash on, I'm just going to manipulate it so it gets into all the little recesses, things like that. It's lots of little rivets and things I want it to get into. And when it's dry, I am going to hit the camo section, the greener section of the camo, with Coelho Green Shade. So it has more of a contrast. Because at the moment, that's got quite a contrast, right? Okay, looks pretty good. But when I put the wash on, it will look like it's darker because I'm hitting all those recesses. So I want it to be kind of that level of contrast of the light and the dark when it's done. So when I put the wash on over everything, it will kind of blend in a bit. Then I put the green shade over the green to make the green look slightly darker, and then I will dry brush the lighter areas to bring it back up again. So what I'm going to do is zoom in a fraction. Woohoo! That's quite a bit. Now I've got a reasonably good brush. You don't have to use a super good brush. And basically I'm just going to hit all the little bits of detail, like so. Really work it in. But it's mainly in the detail. I'm going over the whole of the plane. So over the greener section I am hitting it slightly harder with the wash, like so. I'm just working it in. And when it comes to places like these, rivets are the most key bit. So I could really be slopping this on and making it quite a quick process. By all means, you could always gloss varnish, so it would hit more into the recesses, so you don't have to worry so much about dry brushing, because that would be a quick method. But I'm actually taking my time because I really like these planes. But like I was saying, if I do that, it will look too dark, so I will literally just drag my finger over, because I do want the planes to look dirty as well, like they have been billowing smoke, things like that. And don't worry, when you dry brush, you'll be bringing back the top layer anyway. So I'm trying to get all those nice little rivets like that, especially going over the green. And I'm just dragging my finger off of there, just taking off the excess. And I'm going to apply this process to all the planes. Okay, so there we have the wash drying, and you can see where I've gone over the green, it is slightly darker, but then obviously the khaki kind of colour is also a little bit darker. So when I dry brush the lighter colour, it will make the darker colour, the green, look lighter, and I really want that contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to water down a bit of Coelho Green Shade. I'm just going to go over the green, like so. So making that area slightly darker, just like so. It will make a bit of a difference when it's dry. So I'll do the same to all the planes. Making that green just a little bit darker. And it's just personal preference. You can pick whatever camo colours you want. And I just want a bit of contrast, so when we do play Aeronautica on camera, it will look a bit more noticeable. Because like I said, camouflage, if it's perfect, it's quite hard to spot. But somehow I want to find the right balance between eye-catching, yet still looks like an active camouflage. Okay, so now it's dry, you can see a bit more of a contrast difference. So I'm going to try to pick out as much detail as I can with a dry brush. So I'm using an Army Painter dry brush. I mean, it is relatively soft. It does a pretty good job. Obviously, there are other ones out there. Artist Opus is an amazing brush set. I don't currently own any, but that is one thing that is on my wish list for Christmas. So I'm just going to wipe off the excess. A piece of paper towel, easy for me to say. And I am using a bit of a Reichland Flesh shade. So I'm just going to try to bring up a bit of the detail, a little bit at a time. So you can see there, it's not making masses of difference. And if you don't like that colour, and you think it's not doing a lot and you want to hit it slightly harder, you can always add a little bit of maybe pallid witch flesh or something with it. I wouldn't add white, it'd be too white then. I'm just going to try and pick out some of the details. Obviously less is more when it comes to dry brushing, but you can always add more. It's not so easy to take away. So once again, adding a bit to my brush, rubbing a bit off, a bit of paper towel. You can see there is a little bit of a difference to that part of the wing compared to the left part of the wing. Not masses, but it is there. So I'm going to keep adding to until I'm happy with. So just a little bit on there. The idea is to make it have a bit more of a contrast and pick up some of that lovely detail. And these planes have got some fantastic detail. You don't think they have initially, especially the Orc ones. They have no right to have that level of detail. They're fantastic looking planes. You can already see already that it's starting to have a bit of a difference. So I've dry brushed there, haven't dry brushed there. So it does make just a little bit of a difference. And like I said, you can push it as hard as you like. So you can always add a bit of pallid witch flesh or something to it. Or even a bit of a more of a heavy-handed dry brush. But yeah, I'm thinking that's looking pretty nice. So I'm going to rinse and repeat on every single one of these planes. So that's what we're looking like so far. Next thing is all the details. So yeah, just all the details, you know, it'll take 2 seconds, right? So I'm going to start with the metallics. So use any silver you like. I still like using the old lead belcher. If that ever focuses. There we go, lead belcher by Citadel. Have a little palette just off camera. Always best to add a little bit of water to this. And now I'm looking at all the jet engines, front and back, so the impellers, anything like the little grills like above it, it's always quite nice, just in there. And of course the guns on the nose and the rear. So this is a very quick method of painting. Obviously you can spend as much time as you like. But I'm painting about 250 points, so I'm painting these two big guys, 4 Valkyries which are fully loaded out. I want to get them on the table pretty soonish. So once I've painted up all the silver bits, then I'll add a little bit of null oil, which is a black wash, to all the recesses on the silvers. Here's the nuller wheel. So just a little bit on pretty much everything, trying to get all those recesses of the metallics. Let's get into the drum. You don't need masses, you don't need to swamp it, you just want to get into the recesses. Like so. Just add a little something. And when it comes to the jets, I do like to put quite a bit in just inside there. Just teasing it and working it around. Like that. Okay. Now the main last detail before you start putting down the decals are the windows. There's many different ways you can do the windows. On the bigger vehicles I've painted over the years, I've had windows on, like the Marvel Crisis Protocol terrain. I have airbrushed. These are tiny, tiny, tiny. I'm not going to bother. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of the old Temple Guard blue, just in the lenses. And then once that's dry, I'm going to put a wash so it hits all the edges around the window panes itself. And then I'll probably do a very slightly lighter colour in the centre. So a bit of Temple Guard blue, nice bit of paint on my finger there, Ross. And I'll just start painting in here. So you can see already the edges are a bit darker anyway, which is fine because later on I will make the edges just that much more darker again. Now I know it's not realistic, there's not many window panes that are blue, but what I'm trying to do is show the reflection in the sky. So you can do this several different ways. The sky that these planes may fly in may be quite alien, so it could well be weird and wonderful colours, oranges, pinks even, maybe even purples, totally up to you. So that's what I'm going to do, start painting all these windows. So while your decals are drying, and I do recommend after they do dry, use some matte varnish to calm them down a bit. And if you are using decals on a slightly bumpy surface, so these are quite bumpy, rivets and whatnot, do recommend micro set, micro sole to get a really smooth finish with your decals. I do have a video that I've done way back on the channel about using this stuff, and I can't recommend it enough. I'm not using too many decals on these planes because as much as I want to use those wings there, which don't show up terribly well on camera, there you go, for the Valkyries, because they came in the Valkyrie box, funny enough, the wings aren't very smooth. You have rivets and little raised sections on the top there. They really would not sit flush, even with micro sole and micro set, which is a shame. But hey ho. So as you can see, the plane's slightly shiny because I have put some matte varnish on. And next I'm going to paint up, zooming in slightly, my bases. So green and red are the opposite ends of the colour spectrum. They go really well together, hence Christmas, I guess. Christmas colours. I have done a lovely green radar sweep before with red on the base. So green and red on the same base. Showed quite well. Every single Aeronautica army I'm painting up is a different base. Now I know that might bug some people, and it really should be bugging me because, you know, by now you know what I'm like. But with my blue orc planes, my my Death Skulls, orange obviously is opposite to blue, so I've done an orange base for them. And my other planes I've done in the past for like John's grey planes, I did the red radar sweep with the green with that. But this one I'm doing slightly different. Rather than a sweep going around like the classic radar look, I've just gone for a black primer initially, hit the centre with a bit of the zenithal white, and now I am gonna blast it with red. So I'll get my red handy. The red I'm currently using is Bloody Red from Game Air Vallejo. Quite punchy, I really do like it. And I'm hoping with the dark colour in the background and zenithal highlight, the centre will be fantastic and the outside will be a bit duller. So you could, rather than doing a zenithal or even using an airbrush, just use a darker red around the outside and then have a lovely blend of a red in the centre. But I am zenithal in because airbrush makes life a little bit easier. It's a bit of a cheat, I know. In fact, I'll pause this video to put some gloves on, which doesn't happen very often. I've got a dirtier board I'm putting down rather than using my cutting mat. Actually wearing gloves for once, forward thinking. And I'm just going to gently spray this base. The compressor is kicking in. So I'm going to put 2 finish coats down. So start seeing results there. And in this particular force, I have 6 planes. I'm going to do this a whole 6 times while my planes are drying. Okay, so that's what they look like when they're dry. So what I'm going to do next is paint all the metal framework my lovely lead belcher colour and apply null oil wash, which I generally do to lead belcher every time anyway. And then I will paint this symbol here gold and the other 3 symbols white. So I will get cracking with that. So this is what it looks like so far, before I used any washes on the gold, for example. So it's just had the silver, it's had the null oil over the silver. And now what I'm going to do is paint these 2 sections black before I paint the symbols white. So the reason I'm using a dark colour on these is because remember that is where the numbers go for altitude and speed, and I want them to show up. So I'm just using a Corvus black initially because it covers pretty well. I mean, you can use an Abaddon black. So Corvus black isn't actually black. It's more of a dark grey, but it covers quite well. So covering the whole section there. And most blacks aren't actually that good at covering, funny enough. I mean, obviously more money you spend on a black, the better it is. So don't be surprised if you might need 3 coats, but 2 nicely thin coats, something like this would be great. Okay, I'll rinse and repeat on all of these. Once you're happy with your scheme, obviously all you've got to do now is clip these back together. So just remember that the speed is measured from 1 to 9 and clicks in that side like so. And the altitude 0, which you don't want to be at 0, to 5. So just clip it, as easy as that. You just clip the backs into place. Nice click in every section. So 1, 2, 3 clicks. So there we have your bases. Just like so. Okay, so I'll send them all and take some pictures. Okay, so there you have your Imperial planes finished. So you can imagine them sweeping over the Imperial trenches, patrolling and protecting their troops. So I wanted to make a camo scheme fairly eye-catching, fairly punchy, yet still camouflaged. And hopefully I pulled that off. So this is how I paint them. Obviously I've been using an airbrush to speed things up, but the same process still apply if you want to use actual hairy brushes. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and hopefully they'll be on a battle report soon. So I haven't played Aeronautica for a while, and I know a few people are itching to play again. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done already. It really, really does help with our channel. Thank you, and until next time.